Welcome back, Focus Learners. We're jumping right into today's explainer, and honestly, this one is a real game changer. We're not just, memorizing dry definitions today. We're taking a specific set of vocabulary words and turning them into actual, powerful communication tools you can deploy right away. We're zoning in specifically on Lesson 8 from the legendary 504 Absolutely Essential Words Guide. So if you've ever felt like your sentences are just missing a little punch, or you want your descriptions to be a bit sharper, you are exactly in the right place. Let's get into it.
Here's our quick roadmap for today's explainer. We've got our introduction, a deep dive into some key terms, a look at relational words, a rapid-fire practice quiz, and finally, a word spotlight to wrap things up.
All right, Section 1, our introduction, the power of words. Let's briefly touch on why expanding our vocabulary actually matters so much.
Check out this incredible quote from the ancient Greek playwright Aristophanes, which sits right at the top of our source material for Lesson 8. He says, "By words the mind is excited and the spirit elated." I just love that. It perfectly captures the true power of language. You see, expanding our vocabulary isn't just about sounding smart. It literally excites the mind. It opens up completely new pathways of thought, letting you express the exact nuance of your feelings. When you finally nail that perfect word for a specific situation, well, it truly is an elating experience.
So here is our vocabulary sandbox for today. The 12 essential words from Lesson 8. Just scanning down the list, we have exaggerate, amateur, mediocre, variety, valid, survive, weird, prominent, security, bulky, reluctant, and obvious. Now, you probably recognize most, if not all of these. But recognizing a word when you read it is completely different from actually reaching for it in the moment and using it perfectly in a conversation. Our goal today is to bridge that exact gap.
Moving on to Section 2, our deep dive, exaggerate and amateur. Let's anchor these in the real world.
Let's kick things off with our first target word, exaggerate. To exaggerate simply means to make something greater than it is, to overstate reality. But what's really fascinating here is a concept from one of our audio sources. It brought up this old idiom about making a tiny needle look like a giant stick. That vivid mental image, that is exactly what you do when you exaggerate. You take this tiny little kernel of truth and just blow it up to massive proportions.
Our source material anchors this perfectly with 3 great examples. Think about it. If you tell someone you have the absolute best car in the entire world, you are exaggerating. If a standard bookkeeper inflates their role to sound like they single-handedly run the whole company, they're exaggerating their importance. Or, as the book kind of humorously points out, if you claim the famous basketball player Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is literally 8 feet tall, you are definitely exaggerating. I mean, the guy was tall for sure, but not quite 8 feet. Visualizing these scenarios really makes the definition stick.
Building on that, let's look at the word amateur. This specifically describes someone who does something out of pure passion and pleasure, rather than for a professional paycheck. For instance, you might have an amateur cross-country runner who's training just to make the Olympic squad purely for the love of the sport, or an amateur singer who performs constantly, even without a recording contract. The crucial takeaway here is that amateur isn't actually an insult about skill level. It's a classification of motivation. It's really about heart versus the wallet.
All right, Section 3, relational words, comparing contexts. This is all about how seeing words interact locks them into your memory.
Let's contrast 2 powerful words here. Take prominent, which means well-known, highly visible, and important, and stack it up against mediocre, meaning just average, ordinary, neither good nor bad. This beautifully illustrates the extreme opposite ends of quality and status. You could have a prominent business person or a prominent historical figure like Charles de Gaulle, right? They absolutely stand out. On the flip side, you could sit through a mediocre movie or read about a mediocre scientist who never really makes any unique discoveries. They just kind of blend into the background. By linking these 2 words in your mind as complete opposites on a spectrum of significance, you effectively master both of them at the exact same time.
Moving right along to Section 4, practice quiz, test your word power. It's time for some rapid-fire active recall.
Here's your first challenge. Fill in the blank. Most people agreed that he was a blank-looking man because of the long red beard. Take a look back at our Lesson 8 list in your head and try to guess the missing word. What would an unusually long red beard make someone look like? I'll give you a quick second.
And the answer is weird. His unusually long red beard made him a weird or mysterious-looking man. The word weird brings this great sense of the unearthly or the highly unusual right into the sentence. Did you get that one? Okay, let's try another.
Here's the next one. The blank tennis player would never make the Olympic squad. Which word from our lesson best fits a tennis player who simply isn't quite good enough to reach those elite professional heights of the Olympics? Think back to those relational words we were just talking about.
If you guessed mediocre, you totally nailed it. A mediocre player is perfectly average. You know, neither terrible nor great, which explains exactly why they wouldn't make an Olympic squad.
All right, one last quick test for you. The big coat looked blank on the midget. What word from Lesson 8 describes a large coat taking up way too much space on a much smaller person? Think about sheer volume and size here.
The correct word is bulky. The coat was bulky, meaning it took up way too much space and was awkwardly large. This really illustrates exactly why visualizing a word within a specific scenario, like a small person completely engulfed in a massive, heavy winter coat, is absolutely crucial for retention. You aren't just memorizing letters on a page, you're remembering a vivid image.
Finally, let's hit Section 5, our word spotlight on the word obvious.
We're going to shine a light on the fascinating etymology of a word you probably use literally every single day. It really proves that words are kind of like historical artifacts. Our source material gives us the beautiful origin story for the word obvious. It actually comes from two Latin roots, ob, which translates to against, and via, which translates to way or path.
So when you put those two together, quite literally, if something was sitting right in your path, or if it met you directly against your way as you were walking, it was utterly impossible to miss. It was obvious. Isn't that brilliant? The physical idea of almost tripping over something in the road naturally evolved into our modern concept of something being easily seen or understood, and I think once you know that history, the word becomes incredibly sticky in your mind.
To wrap up today's explainer, I want to leave you with a direct challenge. We've explored words like exaggerate, amateur, mediocre, prominent, weird, bulky, and obvious. But here's the thing. The only way these words truly become yours is if you actually use them. So, which of these newly mastered words from Lesson 8 will you strategically deploy in your very next conversation to elevate your communication? Seriously, pick one right now, and watch how a single, perfectly chosen word can completely shift a dynamic. Thanks so much for joining me today. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and never stop expanding your world through your vocabulary.